Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck, and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. This week, on location, as it were, we're at a sold-out show tonight in Glasgow with Cardinal Black. Second night of the tour. It's been an amazing start, and I thought it'd be a cool opportunity to kind of talk you guys through some of the gear that I'm using and give you a kind of rundown of my rig to perilously avoid what is undoubtedly a copyrighted term. So let's dig into it. So probably the obvious place to start is going to be the guitars. Nothing kind of new or too revolutionary in that respect. First guitar, the kind of workhorse of the night, is this, my Yamaha Revstar, very kindly made for me by the guys at the custom shop at Calabasas in California, my Yamaha. It's chambered. I've done numerous videos on and with this in the past, which I'll link to above and below should you want to check it out. It's just a great sounding guitar that, as I said, is kind of the workhorse. It's kind of the mainstay of the set for the Cardinal Black. Just a pretty cool guitar. Sounds a little bit like this. Next up, we have this. Again, another kind of relatively recent acquisition. A Telecaster that I bought from a good friend of mine, Mr. Simon Whitehead, a name you may recognize as cameraman at that pedal show for the longest time. Fantastic guitar player, lovely bloke, and yeah, before he knew it, I was sat in his living room playing this guitar about 3 hours after we put it up for sale on Instagram. It's just a great sounding Telecaster. It started life as an Squier, had an extra route added at the neck for an extra pickup. Again, just pretty cool guitar. The control plate is upside down for easier access to the volume and the tone controls. May switch that around at some point, but for the time being, yeah, very happy with it. Sounds a little bit like this. Next up in the rack, again, another relatively recent acquisition in the shape of this black Gibson 355, signature model for Shinichi Ubukata. Guitar probably better known for being the guitar that Dave Grohl played in the video for Shame Shame. The Foo Fighters, again, I've done videos on and with this guitar. It's a relatively rare beast. It is 113 out of 150 made. And as I joked in the video that I did about this guitar, probably only 149 left, as Dave Grohl used his as a shovel in that Shame Shame video. It's just a great sounding 355, I should say. It's got the Veritone on it, which I don't use, at least not particularly wittingly anyway. I used it unwittingly on the records without actually realizing I was in position 1 or position 2 before realizing, and then continued to record the rest of the track with it. It's all entirely stock. Also got the Bigsby on it as well. It's kind of the rise up guitar at this point. Sounds a little bit like this. Next up, we have this guitar, Squier. I'll take another guitar with it. A Squier 40th Anniversary Jazzmaster. I guess usually the kind of caveat with Squier guitars is great guitars for the money. This is just a great guitar full stop, currently with 5 strings. As you had noticed, after snapping one last night, so I have to replace that a little bit later. All entirely stock again. May change the pickups out at some point, just because I don't know Jazzmasters kind of particularly well, to be honest. I don't know what this guitar is necessarily capable of, so I may stick some radio shops in it. We upgrade the electronics at the same time, but to be honest, most of that is just because I like kind of faffing around with guitars. But I think adding the extra string is probably a better place to start, at least for the time being. Really cool guitar. It sounds a little bit like this. Moving on, the last of the electrics is this. One of the best kind of Les Paul-esque, shall I say, guitars that I've ever played, made by Angelo van Marienborg, aka Panucci Guitars in the Netherlands. It's chambered, again, I've done videos on and with this, which I'll link to above and below. It's just a fantastic sounding guitar. It's got a kind of snap and an air and a resonance, which I just think is particularly appealing. How much of that is because it's chambered, I don't know, but I would definitely say it has a kind of, almost a faux kind of 335 quality about it. Either way, sits beautifully in a mix and can cut through like an absolute demon, but does all that kind of subtlety and snap and kind of air and just kind of niceness that you want a great set of PAFs to do. It's just a great sounding guitar. Again, sounds a little bit like this. Last but not least, comes out at least once in the set. It is this. It's a Yamaha TransAcoustic. Of course, does all the kind of bells and whistles of reverb and chorus and everything else built into it. But it gets used on one track, a track called Free, kind of at the start of the encore with Cardinal Black. It's just, honestly, it's a great guitar. It kind of, you know, aside from all of the other kind of cool stuff that it does, it's just a great workhorse acoustic. not much else to say about it, really, apart from the fact that it sounds quite nice. It sounds a little bit like this.
You complete me, girl. Oh, yes, you do. 'Cause I'm free when I'm there, and I'm home when you need her. 'Cause I'm free when I'm there, and I'm home.
Moving on to the Talent Enhancement Center. The pedalboard, there's a little bit going on, I guess, but nothing too kind of dramatic. Obviously, the G2 is the kind of, come a bit closer, will you? The G2 is kind of the kind of workhorse, I guess, or kind of the brain of the operation. Controls pretty much everything with the exception of the Line 6 HX Stomp XL, which I cycle through different presets. So if we pull that up a second, for this particular preset, for example, we've got a plate reverb, got harmonic trem, a slapback delay, I do believe, a slightly longer delay, a poly sustain, which is kind of their take on the AHX Freeze, comes in handy for some kind of more ambient kind of stuff. An analog chorus, which I use for Where Do You Go. If we flick over to Tell Me How It Feels, I don't actually use that preset anymore because the stuff in that is kind of covered by the one in the more generic Cardinal black. Rise Up, straight away turns on that delay for that very kind of prominent delay that you hear in the introduction. And lastly, I'm Ready, which switches on a 63 spring reverb, in addition to the reverb that's coming from the amps. Again, slapback delay and harmonic trem. In regard to what's happening in the G2 then, if we flick the lid, black box, needless to say, is the Snouse black box. Probably my favourite overdrive, or one of my favourite overdrives that I've ever tried. It's kind of derived from that original Marshall Blues Breaker, minus the weird little quirks and idiosyncrasies of that pedal. Next up, the small speaker overdrive by Great Eastern Electronics, or FX, I should say. Does that kind of small amp at the edge of exploding very nicely. Had a lot of use on the Cardinal Black album, actually. We've got the Mythos Molnir, which every time I say it wrong. Kind of clone derived, I guess. Again, a great pedal. The Gurus Echo Sex, kind of inspired by one single head of a Binson Echo Rec. Sounds warm and kind of cool. We've got a gig rig isolator falling off the pedalboards. Pedalboard is Schmidt Array as well, I should say. Carried around in a Pelly case of reference number I now can't remember. As I said, top side, Line 6 HX Stomp XL. We've got the Jackson Audio Bloom compressor with boost built in. Golden Fleece by Mythos again. EP Boost is my solo kind of boost. The Trelicopter, who makes that? Mua. That's the kind of choppy trem that you hear at the start of Tell Me How It Feels. Analog Man, King of Tone, of course the fabled King of Tone. Catlin Great Echo Rec, still the kind of gold standard, I guess, to a degree when it comes to Echo Recs, along with the Boonar by Dora Prince, and of course a Korg Pitch Black Mini. Moving over to the other pedal boards, got a wah pedal. For the few moments in the set I do actually use a wah pedal. Golden Reverberator by UA. This gets a hell of a lot of use. I absolutely love this. It's the Space Echo RE202 by Boss. Obviously a kind of modern digital recreation of those old Space Echoes from back in the day. And then the Astra, the modulation machine, again by Universal Audio, gets used for a trem on setting 1 and a chorus on setting 2. In regard to the Golden Reverberator, I use a preset which is kind of a long plate, which is kind of like a nice little ambient bed that kind of goes under stuff. Last but not least, to end this slightly panicked rig rundown before the doors open in about 30 seconds time, we have a Pro Reverb by Fender. It did have a Jensen something or other speaker in it, which I blew up in the process of recording the album, so now it's back to its original neodymium, which I like not as much as the Jensen, so that'll be switched out at some point. That's kind of the top and the low end of the rig, and then this, which is doubling up very kindly as a side table, it would appear today. Cheers, Robs. As well as a stand for the radial big shot, is the Victory Copper. Very kind of Vox AC30 inspired, I guess. Does that strident kind of pokey mid-range, I guess, which you would kind of typically expect from a Vox. The idea being that the two pieces kind of fit together like a jigsaw, so you've got the highs and the lows of the Fender Pro Reverb, and then bang in the middle, kicking everyone in the face, we have the Vox, or the Victory, I should say, Copper. And that's kind of it, to be honest. If we swing around the stage, nothing else kind of revelatory, I guess. If I nab that camera off you, Samuel. Thank you, mate. Worth mentioning as well, Mr. Joe Coombs. playing with Laura Evans, who's very kindly supporting us on this tour, playing an Atkin, some description. Great guitar. We've got a Fender, I want to say Hot Rod Deluxe Tweed, and a guitar that he insists he's not going to sell me, but he will at some point. A Gibson 335 Anchor stud. We've got some bass stuff going on. Nobody cares about that. Running through the ash now. We've got our sign, and then we've got another sign, and another sign, just in case at any point you forget who we are. And that's kind of it. So I'm going to play you out now, but as ever, cheers for watching.